Hello, Wine and Dine listeners. This month, we are going to be featuring a winery called Hanson Vineyards. This is a family-run winery. And the really cool thing that we found out when we were visiting this winery is that the winemaker originally went to college in Ithaca, is from Oregon, but went to college in Ithaca, spent some time in Washington, D.C. He was super cool to talk to because he was more in the lawmaking side. So we had a little conversation about that, and then moved back to Oregon and his family farm with very, very deep roots in the area to, which I loved because they actually have that family farm and very deep roots. Of course, I loved that it was deep roots with Rooted Planning Group, but we had a chance to actually talk with them, with the winemaker when we were there. So much fun. If you want to follow him on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, it's Hanson Vineyards. So you can follow them there. But one thing that I discovered when I was there was that his great-grandfather's winemaker's great-grandfather was originally from Norway and moved to Oregon in 1896, purchased the farm that was across the road from the winery. They then took the property into a winery in 1930. So that's when it says very deep roots. That's what they mean. Well, let me tell you, we love their wine. Of course, they had a good Pinot Noir. That's what Oregon is known for. But today, what I'm going to talk about is their Gamay. The Gamay Noir is one of the different grapes that exists, and we loved it. It was unique. It was dry. It was mouthful, flavorful, really savored the wine. So if you enjoy something different, go try the Gamay Red that they have. It's $26 per bottle. Good price point. Of course, if you're going to have it shipped, there's additional costs associated with it. But we really enjoyed their Gamay. They do have a club that you can join if you're interested. Not trying to sell this company, of course, but I do really think that if you're looking for something different, there's no cost to join, which I absolutely love. If you get out to Oregon, there's complimentary wine tasting for you and your guests. You get 15% off the first 12 bottles each year. And then if you go beyond that, you get 25% off. You also have access to new and limited wines. And they do have some invitations that you can get invited to. One is out in July. Maybe it changes different each year. And then they do invite you to vertical tastings. Now, of course, we won't be able to be there, but we did talk to Jason, the winemaker, and ask if there's any way we could virtually do that. So we're trying to figure out how to do that. If we learn more, we'll certainly let you all know. One thing that I loved that Jason said to us is whether you're a wine connoisseur or a novice, I should say, he's very open to questions. And he really, truly embodied that. So, he said no questions are a dumb question. And we can usually get pretty deep in the weeds if you want, which is what we loved about our conversation. So we'd love for you to hop out onto their website, explore them. We're going to post a link in the Facebook page. And if you do happen to buy anything from them and he wants to know how you found out about us, just drop our name, Amy and Brent Irvine, or Wine and Dime Podcast. Thanks, everyone. We hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Every week, it's my goal to share financial information that helps you in both your life and financial vineyard. We hope it takes you from your roots to the journey of your vines and the influences in the air that helped craft your delicious life. Like wine, life and finances have different palates that should be celebrated and not judged. Welcome to this edition of Wine and Dime with Amy Irvine and TJ Meehan. TJ, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So as we always do, let's start the show by asking if there's any particular good wines that you have found or anything that you'd like to share, could be beer, with the listeners as they listen to this topic that is around cybersecurity, which requires something to go along with it.
Yeah, well, as far as wine, it's not really my thing. So we really haven't tried anything new. I know Heather keeps trying like all the flavored pineapple or whatever the season is that's coming around. For me, right now we're in summer beers, so I fall back on Sam Adams Summer Ale. That's my favorite one to drink at this point of the year.
I guess I'm so weird because I even like stouts and porters this time of the year, even though they're heavier. It's kind of like my wines. I still like, I mean, I will go with some whites occasionally, but I still like my dark reds. This podcast is going to be coming out in, I think, the end of June, beginning of July. And Brent and I are traveling out to Oregon, the Willamette Valley area. So I've been looking at all the different wineries that are out there, and we've been kind of trying to put together a list. There's been several that we've come up with. I mentioned, I think in one of the podcasts that I recorded recently, I mentioned one called St. Innocent. I thought that was a fun winery, but there's a few others that are, there's a whole, kind of like it is here in the Finger Lakes. There's a bunch of different, wineries that are in the area. And so Brent and I are going to put together a list. So for August, I'll have a whole list of wineries that I have visited out in the Willamette Valley area, and I'm super excited. They're known for their Pinot Noirs, so I'm really, really looking forward to that. I guess stay tuned for additional information if you're looking for Oregon wines.
Sounds like a fun trip.
It will be. First vacation in a long time for he and I. That's a true blue, like shut down and, focus on hiking and relaxing. So I'm excited. Well, let's kind of dig into the topic that I think this is something we've heard a lot about lately is cybersecurity. So I wanted to have a conversation around the particular topic in general, because a lot of people are asking me questions, and I'm certainly not a cybersecurity expert, nor are you by trade, but we know probably more than the average person, I would guess, around cybersecurity. I need to know it for the business purposes, and you've just kind of taken an interest in general about the topic and have implemented and given suggestions to a lot of people. So maybe just kind of topic by topic, we can chat about it a little bit. Lately, what I've been hearing more and more is questions about cell phones and whether or not people, like, are their texts encrypted? Are there, is some stuff flowing through cell phones encrypted? Is there links that they're getting that they shouldn't be clicking on? What are your thoughts around cell phones and even landlines?
So, with cell phones, of course, there's open-ended stuff that happens all the time, but there are ways to prevent it. With Android devices, there's certain apps that you can get that will have end-to-end encryption, which is always nice. As far as like your banking apps and things like that, as long as they're from a secure store, so either the Android store or the iPhone store directly, not side-loaded, nothing weird going on, they are extremely safe. Encryption end-to-end, everything's good to go. Now that's saying, that's for a later topic, but that's on a secure network as well.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of it. But yeah, and even knowing, like, how does somebody know if it's end-to-end encryption? Is there a way that they can investigate that?
Like I said, if you're downloading from a safe store, so Google Store, your Android store, or your iPhone store, those are, for the most part, especially the Apple Store, those are fleshed out. Those are set, and if they can't work around that. Like, they have to, in order to be on the store, they have to be safe. Side-loaded apps, though, those are where the real problem lies. And if you're side-loading apps on your store, on your phone, then basically any app on your phone could be vulnerable.
Okay.
Because that's where malicious code can come into play most of the time. Of course, some stuff slips through the Android store, but those are usually in games or in weird things. If it's a legitimate banking app, you're going to be pretty safe.
Okay.
As long as you're on a secure network. I'm looking at an article right here, and I'll put it in the show notes. This is a quote from the author. If you download a mobile app from a secure store, that is just as safe as visiting a bank branch. And this is said by Paul Benda. He's senior vice president of risk and cybersecurity policy at American Bankers Association.
Okay.
So a pretty reputable source.
Yeah.
And, if he's saying it's pretty safe, you're good to go. He also says further down here, banks use extremely secure high-end encryption technology. We like saying that bank apps are like having a bank branch in your pocket. So as far as that goes, that's where you're going to be good to go. But in the same article, as you read down through it, that's where I'm talking about those side-loaded apps that can have stuff that can mess with your, that can put code on your laptop or on your computer or on your phone. That can kind of supersede that. And that's where you just want to be the safest. If you're side-loading apps on your phone,
putting yourself at major risk.
Right. And basically, for the people who don't know, side-loading just means you're getting it from a store other than a secure store. So there's only really like 3 out there that I would say are secure. There's your standard Androids, Google Play Store, your Apple Store, and to a certain degree, the Amazon store, where you get like your Kindle apps and things like that. There's others out there, but I don't ever touch them. There's just, basically everything safe is on those 3 stores for the most part.
So I guess let's talk a little bit too about the links that come in. Like what was it recently that I saw? It was like the Department of Motor Vehicles. It was some kind of scam that came through. Like you have unpaid registration or unpaid something. It was some scam. I mean, I do get text alerts from some of these organizations that tell me like it's time to renew and that sort of stuff, but they generally don't have links in them, or if the link, like the link usually is more of like, again, text driven. Have you seen a flare from that perspective at all?
For sure. I mean, I don't know, my number must be out there somewhere. I get stuff all the time that comes through text. I just send it to spam. You just have to be super mindful and play, I think on that, play it better safe than sorry type thing. If you think it's legit, don't click the link in the email or the text. Go directly to the website.
Right. Don't
call the number that it came in on. Get the number directly from the website or from wherever. That's, I think, the safest route for any of things like that. I try never to click links in email or text. The phishing scams have become very sophisticated, and it's just, if something doesn't smell right, just go the safer route and go directly to the website. I generally don't.
And even if it smells right, maybe still do that too, just to get yourself into the habit, right?
If you weren't expecting the email or the text, if you really weren't expecting it, if you didn't click something that said send me an email or a text, then I would stay away from it for the most part.
How about things like VPNs? I've got an app that actually I can put on my phone as well as my iPad and, my computer and everything. Are they a good way to protect you?
I mean, they can be. So the best thing about a VPN for people who don't know, a VPN stands for virtual private network. And what a VPN kind of in layman's terms does is you take your connection and connect to a central server somewhere, wherever you connect it to. So say that server is in New York City, all your data would go through a server in New York City and then out to the website that you're trying to reach. That's the easy definition of it. The best part about a VPN, though, is that traffic is now encrypted from end to end. So as soon as it leaves your phone and goes to the network in the middle and then jumps to whatever website you're going to, all that traffic is encrypted.
Okay.
So that's a huge, especially when you're like on public Wi-Fi. So if you're in a hotel or a coffee shop or anything like that, if you're just browsing the internet, you're probably fine. But if you're checking your bank accounts, if you're doing any type of anything with sensitive data, I think a VPN is an absolute must. I have one on my phone. I have them on my computer. And then just for the fun side of a VPN is it allows you to kind of circumvent some geolocation things.
Okay.
So basically, let's say, all right, here's a great example. I wanted to watch the Yankee game a couple days ago. I'm in New York. We're blacked out. So I connected to a VPN in the West Coast out in California. So now it thinks my computer is in California. That is not in network. Yankee game came on. I got to watch the Yankee game on MLB TV, and I was excited because I don't have Yes Network. So I got to watch the game just sitting at my computer, and And that was kind of cool. So just kind of being able to circumvent some of that stuff. Also, if you're like in another country, let's say, and they block certain websites, you can connect to a US server and boom, all those websites are now open.
Yeah, some of our military clients have that issue, right? They have problems with access to certain websites, especially financial websites. I mean, I get why the financial websites have the access blocked, but that is how they've gotten around it, is to connect to a VPN that is US based.
Yep. And then again, because it's encrypted end to end, that is a pretty safe connection. So you're going to be in a pretty safe spot as far as all that goes. I definitely highly, highly recommend them.
And do you recommend that it always be on, or only on like networks that, so if you're at home, do you recommend that the VPN be on at home, or do you recommend that it only be on like when you're in?
I mean, if you have your router configured correctly, no. I don't have my VPN on at home hardly at all unless I need it for whatever reason.
Most people don't know how to configure the router, though, do they?
Correct. Well, a lot of people will just use the router that the ISP gives them. And that might not be the safest option. It's also not a great router, let's be honest. But if you have a router, your own router, you can set your own security things. You can set your own passwords. You can make sure your Wi-Fi is secure. You can secure your network. You can even create a guest network. So if you have people that come to your home and want to get on the Wi-Fi, you can give them access to the internet without giving them access to your whole network. Just having a router, I think, is security 101 for your home. But I think for the most part, you don't really need a VPN at home, I would say. It can potentially slow down your internet, only because you can only go as fast as the VPN can go. So say you have a 1 gig connection, but the VPN only has 100 megabytes. You're only going 100 megabytes.
Okay.
You're going to max out at the speed of the VPN.
So it can affect performance, basically.
It can,
you're saying. Yeah,
potentially. Yeah. Now, if you're on your phone, and like I usually have mine on at work because I connect to the store's public Wi-Fi. So I turn my VPN, especially if I'm going to be accessing anything while I'm there. So my VPN will be on my phone while I'm working, and then to turn it off later as the day goes on. And
so, like, for most people, where would they find a VPN?
I mean, just a simple search is going to give you, and I could put a link in the show notes. I just pulled one up real quick. It's from security.org. It has their top 10. I've used 3 of these in the past, and I've tried all 3. I've gone back and forth to, I don't want to say I recommend, but I personally use private internet access. But NordVPN, there's ads out there all the time. They're the number one. Yep. Great service. I've used ExpressVPN, and I've used private internet access. And actually, my antivirus suite has a VPN built in as well if I wanted to use theirs for an additional cost.
I think like Avast has a VPN now too. If you use them, I think they have a VPN. So I think there are a variety of different options that are out there for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I
like private internet access because they have a great price on long-term subscriptions. Like I think a 3-year subscription is like $90. So it's $30 a year.
Okay.
Where if you go monthly, if you pay monthly, month to month, it's $12 a month.
So, I mean, $30 a year, that's not bad. I think Nord is maybe around the same price.
It's just a touch higher, but great, again, another great service.
And having that on your phone, does that encrypt text messages too?
No. Not necessarily. Encrypted text messages are going to be kind of something different. Messenger for Android, the default messenger for my phone anyway, can have it on as long as the other user has it on as well. So like there's a little lock that comes next to the text that comes on, and that tells me that that's encrypted. If you're basically, at least through Android, if you're going through standard SMS, those are not encrypted messages. If you're going through their internal things, so like me, the wife, and the kids all use the same messaging app, so all of our texts are encrypted among each other. Okay. But if I'm texting someone like on an iPhone, they don't like to play together. So if I was texting you have an iPhone, right? Our text won't necessarily be encrypted. We're just sending standard SMS texts at that point.
So when you're sending that kind of information, so let's just talk, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it just kind of came into my mind, like sometimes people will send some pretty confidential information over email and or text. And I think there's a false belief. I mean, I hope that people know not to send things over email. Just in general, it's been published enough that emails can get hacked, especially if people's passwords aren't super strong or if they don't have like multi-factor authentication or Google authentication or something. But also text messages can get hacked, right? I mean, it's something that happens, and it's not a good idea to send too much confidential information that way either, is it?
Oh, no, I wouldn't send too awful much over text ever. They can just pull that out of the air, basically.
Yeah.
A sophisticated enough hacker, if they want your information, are going to be able to pull it. But
don't make it easier for them.
Yeah, don't make it easy, right?
There's so many. I mean, what do they spend like an average? It's not very long. Like somebody will try an average of so many minutes, like to get in. And if it's too hard, they'll just move on to the next person because it's still easy for somebody else.
Yeah, they're going to take the easiest target.
Yeah.
Just protect yourself by, why waste their time trying to get a hard target if they can just move on to the easy target next door. So just having some sort of basic security, and then, of course, just being mindful of what information you're putting out there.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're mindful, like me, I've been pretty good, and my information's out there. You know that.
Yeah.
We've had to deal with it. And, all my credits locked down. I mean, I still have a great credit score, but that's because you helped me get my credit reports locked down and frozen up so that nobody could open accounts for me.
And some fraudulent activity happened that required. Yeah. So
I mean, that was huge. Just being mindful and monitoring what's happening, because I monitored it. I knew second something happened and was able to head it off before anything major happened.
Fortunately, it was just 5 o'clock in the morning that it happened, right?
Right. The emails always seem to come in the middle of the night. They get the longest. They get the longest time for stuff to go wrong at that point. And if you're sleeping, they get 2-3 hours before you see the email.
Right.
A lot can happen.
Yeah.
So if you can catch it quick, you're good to go.
It's one of the reasons that I always tell people, don't ever put your banking information, like when they offer to use like debit or information. I'm always, I'm somebody who believes very strongly, like, use your credit cards responsibly, pay them off at the end of every month, right? But this is one of the reasons why I believe that credit cards are better, because if something is tied to your checking or savings account, yes, you can get it back. But when it happens on a weekend, it takes until the next business day for something to actually get corrected. And if it happens on a Friday night, you're stuck with it until Monday morning. Where if it's on a credit card, you can actually just call the credit card companies. Most of them have 24/7 service. Tell them that there was fraudulent activity. They're very happy to take those kinds of reports, because normally if you can get it within 24 hours, they can actually stop the charge and save themselves money. So that's one of the reasons what I tell people never to put their checking or debit card information out online, because I know in some cases there's an additional service fee if you don't do it debit or ACH. But for me, that's like an insurance policy. I just look at it from that perspective and say, well, yeah, I might have to pay 3% more, but I also don't have to worry about my waking up one morning and having my checking account wiped out and, bouncing checks or having to deal with something like that at the banking level. So for me, it's kind of added. Or I might not work with that. I might just say, well, there's other providers out there that don't charge me that fee. It's just part of doing business. So I think that's important. And also just thinking about, we're kind of talking about how to protect ourselves. One of the things that I often talk to people about is just like know or be aware of like the antivirus or malware software or blockers, I guess you want to say, that are on your system, and keep those up to date, right? Or make sure your operating system is up to date or software is up to date. Is there a process? And if you don't know how to do this, I would say go YouTube it. There's tons of stuff out there that you can watch on YouTube videos to learn how to make sure that your operating system is updated, your software is updated, and that your antivirus program is running. Do you have any recommendations on like antivirus or malware protection software? Is it like whatever comes with the computer, or would you add on to that?
I mean, you have to weigh performance to protection, I suppose. And I try to find a balance. So there are certainly antivirus software suites that are super comprehensive, will keep your computer really safe at a cost of performance. You'll lose some performance on your computer. So if you're a video editor or a gamer or something like that, you may not want to get something super system intensive. But there are plenty of options out there. For years and years and years, I went completely free route, and I have just used the Windows Defender that was on the computer alongside of Malwarebytes and a couple other tools that I use to keep my computer clean. I had very, very, very few issues with viruses over the years. I should knock on some wood, and it's worked out fine for me. But that's, again, like, I have safe browsing habits. So I don't take those risky clicks. And then nice thing about, I just, within the last year started paying for my internet service or my antivirus suite. And I just got a one called Bitdefender. And Malwarebytes did this as well, but it actually will block bad websites. If you click on something, you get a big thing that pops up on the screen and says, hey, this is not a site you should be going to. Do you want to go there anyway? And you say yes or no. At that point, you've been warned. Or you can click the link that says, take me back to safety. And you go back, and you're back on the previous page, and you're good to go. And the reason I chose Bitdefender is because it has a lower system impact. It's a solid. I did my research again, tried to weigh my benefits and things like that. Malwarebytes is another great program. I've used it for years. A lot of friends, I'm kind of the unspoken IT guy at work. IT guy without the credentials, I suppose. And I clean computers up for people. So, they give me their computer and it's got some virus on it, and it's, I'm trying to fix it for them. Malwarebytes has been huge for me over those years. There's other tools, but
that's something it's pretty challenging, because sometimes those viruses are, they have like tentacles that get into all sorts. So cleaning them is a challenge when you have that situation. It's not for the faint of heart, I would say.
Yeah, most of the time with those, it's just a system wipe. You got to start over. But unfortunately, I have been able to save some systems stuff, and then you set them up for success in the future and hope that things work out for them at that point. So again, it's all going to fall back on safe browsing habits. If you're going to shady websites, shady things are going to happen. Yeah. So that's things to be cautious of. How about like passwords? Do you believe in like password managers or anything like that? 100%. Yeah. I like you use LastPass. But there are plenty of others out there that do similar things. Password is another one. Yeah, 1Password. And a lot of the antivirus suites out there have a password manager built in as well. Highly recommend a password manager, because it'll do a couple things. One is that it will check, at least LastPass does, it will check to see if you're reusing passwords across multiple sites. Gives you a score. It'll tell you what your score is. Yeah. Yep. And you can work on changing different passwords for every site. And as long as you don't forget your LastPass password, that's pretty critical. You can have very strong passwords on every website, and they can all be different. Yeah. And there's apps for your browser. There's a browser extension that will just fill them in for you. There's apps for your phone that will fill them in for you. Yeah, they require you to re-authenticate every once in a while. And the other thing is that at least with LastPass, I know that you can actually have like a backup person. So you can actually name somebody as a backup to have access to your LastPass account in the event that you were disabled or passed away or something like that. Then somebody would have access to all of those accounts that are online, right? So everybody seems to bank online, have investment accounts online. Nobody's getting statements anymore. A fair number of people aren't. So, I would guess that that's a safety mechanism. Yeah, for sure. And like with banking, all the banking sites, my banking passwords are, ridiculous.
Mine too.
Heather needed to log into the bank account last night on her phone, and I had to pull up LastPass and show her the password so she could type it in. So and she's like, "What is that?" And I was like, "That is a real password."
The other thing too, with regards to passwords and password managers that I want to point out is that doesn't mean like your Chrome or your like your actual internet browser should be used as your password manager. I'm not a big fan of that. I would rather have a separate. Do you agree with that? Okay.
Yes, 100%.
How about those pesky fun phone calls you get that Microsoft is claiming to connect to your computer that they've noticed a virus? That's been something that I think more and more people are aware is, fraudulent. But is there any time anybody would actually call you and say that they need to connect, they noticed virus activity and they need to connect to your computer?
No, never. Long and short.
Long and short.
And what if never happen?
And if somebody does do that, just hang up. Like just don't even
or you can mess with them. That's what I do.
How about, we talked a little bit before about the ISP and the router security. Even if you do have one that a organization has given you, like let's say Spectrum gives you the router, right? I've always told people you should change that router password and make sure that the Wi-Fi password is also something that you can change. Like the number of people that just go with the default, I'm always saying change your default. The thing is it's more important actually to change. I think if you're only going to change one, it's probably more important to change the router default, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, let's say, here's a great example. I have a Netgear router, and all you would have to do is type into Google Netgear router default password, and you have it. It's there. So no matter what, if I don't change it, that is searchable. That's a searchable password, because when you factory reset a Netgear or a Linksys or any of the other brands, they default back to whatever the default password is. That's in their documentation. That's there from day one. So like if I'm helping someone at their house, let's say set up their network, and they forgot their password to their router, all I do is factory reset it. And then I Google their password and then start over. It's so simple. It's such a easy hack. You don't even need to be a hacker. You just need to know how to type in order to get that password. So absolutely 100% have to change that password day one as soon as you're setting it up. Never leave it default.
What if somebody, like let's say the company sets it up and you tell them that you need access to change the router password and they don't let you? Is there a way to circumvent that?
Like a Spectrum?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know my internet provider let me change everything from day one. I don't have Spectrum. I'm not 100% sure how theirs work. They may have a random string so that they have access to it. If it's like a random number that's not the same as everyone else's, I don't have a problem with the ISP's password to the router itself. But there is never going to be a situation where you can't change the Wi-Fi password.
So pushback, basically.
Well, no, I'm just saying like for router security in general, like logging into the router to make system setting changes. If that's a random string of letters and numbers and characters, it's probably relatively safe. What I'm talking about is like the actual Wi-Fi password.
Oh, the Wi-Fi. Yep. Okay.
That one will always be changeable. And that one should be changed from day one to something that you want it to be.
Yep. And I also believe in if at all possible, I run like my Internet of Things on a whole different like guest network than I do anything else, just for added level of security. And also we've looked at a system called Perimeter 30. Let's see, is it Perimeter 81 or Perimeter? I have to look and see what it is now. Perimeter 81, I think is the name of it. Let me make sure. It's funny, I have the system and I can't think of the name of it. It is basically something that you can put around, like it protects your like work system a little bit. just to add an additional level of perimeter 81 level of security to, because you put it on the machine itself. So it basically serves as a VPN, but it's an even stronger VPN if you're on like all one Wi-Fi, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it too.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this before, but given you're in a different world than I am, as far as, you have to deal with the FCC.
Right. The FCC. Yeah.
And all sorts of other different organizations that I don't. But yeah, just a look overview really quick of it. Yeah, that looks pretty solid for something like that.
Yeah. And because we are working from home occasionally, we really do need to have our computers on a separate sort of protective system to make sure that there isn't anything that does get in through other systems that we have running on our internet connections. The other thing that I guess I wanted to just kind of wrap up on is kind of the browser security. You said, avoid risky websites. And if you go to risky websites, you're going to result in a risky situation. What are some of the ways that, beyond like avoiding those risky websites, what are some of the things that you can do that would reduce or increase browser security, I should say?
So one of the main ways like malware or spyware gets into your computer is through ads. They're being served to you through ad servers.
Okay.
And cookies and different things like that. So, at least for your PC at home, it's a little harder on your Android devices or your iPhone devices, but at least for your computer at home, I love using an ad blocker extension.
Okay.
I personally use uBlock Origin. I like that it's open source. The owner of it says he'll never take money. He won't take money to whitelist websites or ad servers. So, and it's all open source. So if you find a ad server out there and you want to add it to their list, it can be added. What that does is, turn that thing on and run Facebook, and you have a whole different appreciation of what your Facebook experience is. All the ads go away. I actually just kind of preparing for this podcast, I looked at it yesterday. And, I scrolled down Facebook for about, 2 minutes, and I looked up and uBlock had blocked 80 ads.
Wow. In just 2 minutes?
Yep. And actually the site I'm looking at right now on the uBlock Origin online tech tips thing that I was looking at, just to kind of have some information in front of me. It's blocking 7 ads on this website alone.
Wow.
It just blocks things out and kind of cleans up your browsing experience.
Yeah.
And it can, transparency, it can mess with some as far as certain websites like don't like to load, or you'll get a banner across the top that says ads pay the bills, things like that. And they're not wrong, but when websites are free,
there's a reason for that. Yeah.
You're the product. Yeah.
Yep.
They want your information to sell it. So there's that. There's another extension I use. It's called, I got it right from my antivirus thing. It's called Bitdefender Anti-Tracker. It was built into my Bitdefender antivirus suite. And it's just an extension that goes into Edge or Chrome or Firefox that takes off some of those tracking things. So those tracking sites. So how it's just uncanny. You're talking about, I really need to buy a new car, blah, blah, blah. And you're talking about it with your friends. And next thing you know, you open up Facebook and you're scrolling down and there's an ad for, the 2022 Fords. And you're like, little things like that. You got a little microphone in your pocket at all times. And they say they're not listening, but they are.
How many times does that happen that you know that it's not?
It's uncanny. So just, having some things set up to try to is nice with Android, especially the newer versions of Android, that you can turn off microphone access to any individual app that you want. So I generally turn it off on Facebook so that unless I'm using like Messenger to talk to somebody, but you can turn it on to, ask every time. So that way if like, hey, all right. So like you go into Messenger and you click that thing and it says, you get a pop-up, at least on Android, you get a pop-up that says, Facebook's trying to access your microphone. Are you going to allow it? You can click this and this is only this time. Now you have access to your mic.
Because of the conversation. I mean, because you're trying to have that conversation.
Yeah, because you're talking, you're actually using it to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So
and I think that's really important for people to understand that those are some of the like little things that can be done, right? I mean, they're not super expensive. They're just little tiny things that they can implement to protect their lives. And I think the other thing that a lot of people need to do, I guess maybe one of the final things is, I talked about not saving your passwords in your web browser itself, but also not saving your payment methods in your browser. Because if your browser ever gets hacked, you've not only got all your passwords, now you've got your payment method in there. It's not safe so whenever that pops up on your, do you want to save this password? Unless it's a system like a password manager or something like that, I would highly encourage people to say no. But this is where people are going to ask, well, what about like, the Apple iPay or Google Pay? Is it safe to have payment methods in those particular apps so that when you're trying to pay for it, like you order something and you're using your phone to do it, iPay always pops up as a payment option. Is that safe? Do you feel that's safe?
Honestly, I feel that's safer than swiping your card.
Why do you feel that way?
Because now so your information is now on Google becomes your bank or your middleman.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So each time, because I use Google Pay all the time.
Okay.
And now I mostly use it at Wegmans, which means, I don't worry about Wegmans at all.
Yeah.
Of course, right. But because Wegmans isn't getting my banking information when I put my phone up to that reader. Google's handling that. So everything's kind of going through that middleman. So even if, say, somebody got that unique key from when I stuck my phone up there, it's like having the chip in your phone on your card. Every transaction has its own unique identifier. So even if someone got that information, they can never use it again.
Okay.
It's unusable. It's like PayPal. Like a lot of people get worried about PayPal, but I love it. It does not. So if I'm buying something from eBay or Amazon through a third party, if I pay them with PayPal, if I get ripped off, they don't send me whatever it is. Okay, maybe I've lost the money on that item, but they don't have my banking information.
Okay.
They only have that PayPal key that PayPal sent them or that Google payment sent them that they can never use again. So yeah, if they ripped me off for $100 for the item I bought, maybe. And I can take that up with eBay, or I can take that up with Amazon, or I can take that up with, whoever. But they don't have it. They didn't get my credit card information on top of it. So I know there's a lot of, skepticism, especially with like Google Pay and iPay.
Yeah.
But I actually feel they're very safe.
Okay.
Just as safe as that chip. That chip has been a nice addition to cards.
Yeah. Credit card companies have loved it. It saved them some headache too. Yeah.
Yeah, because each transaction has its own token. And that token, that number, that special encryption number is a one-time use only, and that's it. And it can never be used again. So I'm a huge fan of it. I recommend it. But again, like with a phone, if you're using it, you have to have a password on your phone. Actually, it won't even work without it.
Yeah.
If you try to set it up without a password on your phone, it will not set up. It'll say, no, we're not going to let you because your phone can be unlocked.
Well, what's interesting, I mean, I have not only do I have a password on my phone with my thumb, my thumbprint, but I also have not a 4 or 6 digit code. I have a full password on my phone. And the reason that I do that is simply because, that's my traveling device. That's my, I want to make sure that phone is super secure. Should I ever lose it, I want to make sure nobody else has access to get into that phone. So I've gone with a passcode instead of, I think it's like 11 or 12, I think how many digits it is, but it's a combination of letters, upper lowercase, numbers, and symbols. Nobody else is going to guess that password ever because it's a passphrase that only I would come up with. So I mean, I encourage people to do that as well, and not like draw the lines kind of thing. I mean, I would really, it's either thumbprint, the facial recognition, and back it up with that, stronger password in case you ever lose it. There's just so much information that's on our phones anymore that it's really, to have it that extra level of security, I think is super important. And again, if you want to know how to do those kinds of things and you don't know, YouTube is your friend. Like you can find any of this stuff out there, or stop into like your Verizon store or your AT&T store or something like that. And most of them can show you how to implement some of those things as well. Anything else that you would suggest that people do that we haven't kind of high level gone through? I mean, we could talk about this all day long, but is there anything that, you want to, if there's one thing that you do to protect your identity, to make it just a little bit harder so that, you won't be the prime target? Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would suggest?
No, I don't think there's anything I haven't talked about, but if there's one thing that you can do to protect yourself, it's passwords.
Passwords.
And then on top of that, passwords, second factor authentication. Like, have a strong password for whatever. Back to PayPal. It's a great example. It's annoying, but every time I log in, I have to put my password in, and I get a second factor authentication sent. Yeah. Every time.
Well, I'll take annoying over being.
Yes, 100%. Because if someone hacks my PayPal account, what do they have access to? They have access to my entire bank account that I have connected to it. And multiple bank accounts. I have 2 bank accounts connected to that, plus a credit card. So they have access to a lot of my financial stuff. And what can they do with PayPal? They can just send cash. Yeah. They can just move money around. So having that second thing. So, if I ever get a PayPal code when I haven't logged into PayPal, it's time to change my password. Right. Because now I know that my password has been stolen. Right. That's the nice part about second factor authentication.
It puts a block up, right?
Yep. It locks everything down. And the second you get that notification that when you didn't request it, you know that your password's compromised. It's time to change that password and move on. Because even with, strong passwords, if a company slips and they send that, and they get hacked, but they, for whatever reason, didn't have their password list encrypted, which has happened. Yeah. Now your username and password's out there on the dark web somewhere, and someone's just going to type it in. Yeah. So having that second factor authentication on top of that, if that's an option for any of your sites, I definitely recommend that. That's where I think that would be the only, I guess we didn't really talk about second factor too much. On top of a password, second factor's huge.
And second factor can be a text message, or it could also be a Google Authenticator, or there's
LastPass has one built in.
LastPass, all of those places have
even an email. Even an email can be sent.
Just something, right? Yep. Well, TJ, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. I think this is such an important topic for people to learn about and to hear more about, and really get an understanding of how they can protect themselves. And I think it's been a bigger issue lately, just because more and more people are hearing about it, and for good reason have concerns that they should be protecting themselves. So I appreciate you taking the time, and we hope you all have enjoyed this podcast. Please feel free to share this with your friends and family. Make sure that you rate us out on iTunes. That always promotes us up into the rankings so more people can listen to us. We also are available on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. So again, make sure you share it with your friends. We want them to know all this information too. We hope you all have enjoyed. Have a great day.
And that will about do it for today's episode of Wine and Dime. You can contact Amy through the website, www.rootedpg.com, or amy@rootedpg.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram @rootedpg for the latest news. And if you have any questions, comments, or topics you would like to hear about, feel free to let us know. And don't forget to rate and subscribe the show wherever you get your podcasts. And again, thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in next time.